I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the Star-Spangled Banner, tonight given to us by Kirsten Millsap.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Beautifully done, Kirsten Millsap. Thank you, Heidi Dawson, Mark Del Maestro, and Kirsten will be back a little bit later in the program this evening to bring us another song, one that she's debuting just for you folks here tonight. So let's get some energy in the room. Let's say good evening. All right, can we get some applause going? All right. This is our third meeting of Freedom Fires Live, given to you by Shane Krauser. And I want to remind you that Shane is heard on the radio every day of the week, Monday through Friday, at 1100 a.m. radio, KFNX. Is that correct? KFNX, 1100 a.m. And tomorrow, don't miss tomorrow, because I will be Shane's guest on the 2 o'clock hour tomorrow. He's on from 1 to 3 every day. Thank you. Thank you. Please, no applause, just throw nickels, dimes, and quarters. Okay. I'm on that matching funds thing, you know. Okay. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have an exciting program for you this evening. As you know, part of Shane's mission is to help us change the dialogue a little bit in this country, how we present the arguments for freedom and constitutional government. And part of that is getting our elected officials and our candidates to hear what we are saying and to respond effectively. And if they don't know what we're saying, then there's a lack of communication. We'll never get this thing turned around. So tonight, Shane is going to address the issue of how we change the dialogue and how we get our candidates for office and our elected officials to hear us and to respond, and how we should present our case more effectively. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know there's nobody better qualified to lead this discussion than the man of the hour. Please welcome Mr. Shane Krauser.
Are there any incumbents here? Any incumbents? No, they're not coming? Well, that's a problem. What about candidates? Any candidates here tonight? Very good. Tell us. Senate LD25. Ralph, thanks so much for being here. We got to get you to be a part of Freedom Fires Live. We got to get you to be a part of this. Very good. Who else? Who else do we have? Heidi, yes. Very good. House of Representatives, LD25, Heidi Dawson. Thank you so much for being here. Any others that are here? Just a P. How many PCs are here? Oh, I love it. This makes my day, especially given what we're... Marianne, we see you. You wanted everybody to make sure that we saw you. We absolutely see you, Marianne. What we're going to talk about tonight is really changing the dynamic going on in this country. That is the nature of the conversation. I believe that with some of the information I'm going to present to you tonight, some of you have seen glimpses of this, but if we could embrace some of the ideas that we're talking about tonight, we could change this country rather quickly. Because right now you have individuals coming into various forms, whether it's Tea Party, whether it's a conservative coalition or federation, whether it's the Campaign for Liberty, whether it's Young Americans for Liberty. We're bringing candidates into these forums, and what questions do we typically hear? Well, it's about a pet project, generally speaking. You want to know what that candidate has to say about something that you're very passionate about. And that conversation probably doesn't really go anywhere very fast, right? Understanding what an individual do with your pet project is not going to get this country anywhere. We have to ensure that individuals that we are electing recognize and understand the rule book. I want you to consider this for just a moment. I want you to imagine that you're boarding an airplane and you talk with the pilot for a time and it's just you flying. You're the only passenger. And you ask him some questions about how long has he been flying? Has he taken a look at the checklist, to which he says, if I get into any trouble in the air, that's when I'll take a look at the checklist, right? And as he starts to mess with the gadgets, it's very clear to you that he has no idea what he's doing. There's no question that you would not fly with him unless you're just maybe high or drunk that particular night. There's no question that you wouldn't fly with him. Or think about this, you need a knee replacement. Would you go into someone to replace your knee if you didn't know that they had the qualifications to replace your knee? Or somebody fixing your car. You wouldn't just pull up your car up into a friend's house without knowing that he had the qualifications to fix the problem that you had. Or a plumber. It doesn't matter. In our culture, we're willing to spend our time, money, and resources to either enjoy something, knowing that the person that's going to help us enjoy that thing is skilled, or repair something. But what have we done in this country? We're allowing people to take the cockpit who have no idea what the checklist looks like. They have no idea. We're allowing individuals to replace our knees, if you will, who have no idea what it even means to be a surgeon. Individuals to fix our car who have never opened up the hood of the car. This is precisely what's going on in America today. How is it that you can expect that we're going to fix this problem in America if we continue to elect individuals at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level, all the way down to dog catcher, who don't understand the oath that they've ultimately taken? We've got to stop just paying lip service to that, because I think to a degree Americans are paying lip service to this idea of constitutional adherence. And when we talk about the Constitution, we get excited. When we talk about freedom, we get excited. But many of the individuals that we're putting into office have no concept of the Constitution, have no concept of freedom, have no concept of liberty, have no concept of natural rights, have no idea what the purpose of government is, have no idea what the purpose of the Constitution is, have no idea what popular sovereignty is, and we're wondering why we got here. Right? Most of the individuals in D.C. could not answer the basic questions that we're going to talk about tonight. And I wish we had several hours to kind of dive into this material, but we don't. So you're going to get the tip of the iceberg. And my hope is that kind of engage your appetite and you'll kind of look at these things on your own. But let's look at this idea first. I've got some audio clips that we're going to listen to tonight. And the first one I want to talk about is American exceptionalism. The clip that you're about to hear is taken from the newsroom, which is the producer of the newsroom is Aaron Sarker. For those of you that don't know who Aaron Sarker is, he's a liberal, okay? He's a producer in Hollywood. And the newsroom is a show that is put on, if you subscribe to HBO, which I don't, it sets up various scenarios. And this particular scenario is political. And what you have in this scenario are three individuals on stage. It's in a college auditorium. One is a conservative, one is a liberal, the third is a moderate. And in this college auditorium, a student stands up and asks this question: do you believe that we're exceptional? And the conservative answers the question and says, yes, absolutely. The liberal answers the question and says, yes, absolutely. And then you're about to hear what the moderate has to say. I want you to listen very closely because I want to ask you if he's on target or if he's missed the target entirely. So let's take a listen to this.
There is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies.
Is he right?
No.
Wait, who said? I heard a yes.
He's putting out some statistics that might be valid.
He's putting out some statistics that might be valid. For example,
The thing of how many deaths there are for, how many babies die.
okay, immortality rate. Okay.
Number of people that the household income.
Okay.
How many poor people we know.
Incarcerated individuals.
Incarcerated, I work corrections, and here it's the
Okay. What about?
going forward with the current rate of increase by 2030. Everybody will either be a correctional officer or an inmate.
Okay. So we understand that we incarcerate a lot of criminals in America. Does that make his point? His point is that America is not exceptional as a result of these things. He talked about literacy rate. He talked about math. He talked about science. And he's saying as a result of our poor rankings, we are not the greatest country. We are not exceptional. Is that valid?
No.
Okay. Who said that? Who's?
I just said that's not what American exceptionalism is about. It's not statistics.
Say that again.
It's not about the statistics. It's about the idea of Americanism. It's a peculiar form of government that nobody else has,
Okay.
and that's what makes us exceptional, that we have spread freedom throughout the world without occupying other countries. That is where we're exceptional. It's not about a bunch of statistics that says we're better than anybody else.
Okay.
It's that we have a unique form of government that is exceptional to all others.
Very good. And there was a comment over here.
Well, exceptionalism also is our attitude. Americanism or exceptionalism as how we perceive the world is where else, what other country goes to countries and helps them and does not expect to take those countries over or dominate them. We're exceptional in that area. And people look to us. What other country is exceptional in the sense that people want to come here and not leave? What other country that brings people here because they want to be here, because they see the exceptionalism that here in our attitude? It's all about attitude. It's all about our government that we have here, and that government foments the attitude that we have to the world.
Very good. Yes.
I am very offended, well, by all that he is saying, most of he is saying, even though I realize that our country has problems. But the very fact that he alludes to the fact that we believe in spiritual things, we believe in God, we have faith, that we are not exceptional.
Right. Yes. Very good. And we're going to get to that here in just a moment. Yes. Brad, we got you running
I thought the
tonight.
exceptional part was that there was no law except from the people. The law didn't come from above down, and we were allowed something, that we were allowed everything, and there's only a few exceptions.
Okay. Very good. Anyone agree with this? Yes. Very good.
Are you going to play the rest of it?
No, I'm not going to play the rest of it.
Well, you're missing the main point by
Tell
not
us the
playing.
main point.
The main point is that he is saying with our current government and our current young people, we are no longer exceptional because we have allowed it to degrade.
Okay.
And that was the rest.
Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So as a result of that, because our young people have not awakened, there's a sense that we are not exceptional. In other words, America is no longer exceptional as a result of certain areas where we are lacking, individuals who are not standing up. That's what you believe. Very good. Thank you.
Now, he has a point there.
He has a point there, but the thing is, as we have the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution is the solution. The Constitution is what makes the United States exceptional. We have to get back to applying the Constitution at all levels of government.
Very good. Thank you. Yes.
This is just somewhat for a contrarian point of view. It's one of those things, I think there's a question between, are we currently an exceptional country? Because, say, for example, all of those statistics and all of that, the very, very first time I saw that, I didn't know saw that little video clip, I didn't know what to think. The second time I saw it, the first thing that went through my mind is I think it was the de Tocqueville quote, America is great because she is good. When she ceases to be good, she will cease to be great. And to a certain extent, I mean, even Lincoln had quotes where we have forgotten God. And how long ago was that? And how much worse are we now? On another aspect, if you want to take a point of view that's not religious, simply an economic version, I think that American exceptionalism is great, or America is, or at least was, exceptional because it provides for a huge amount of upward mobility. Compared to all of the other countries on the planet, no one has the same kind of upward mobility that we have, well, at least had 10, 20 years ago. But that, too, is being lost right at the moment.
Yeah. Very good. Donnie, your thoughts on this?
Hold it.
You do need that.
Yes. Hold on.
He's wrong. We are exceptional. We've always been exceptional. Even Barack Obama can't take that away from us. And we'll overcome that too. This country's the freest country on the globe. What other nation in the world has people crashing their borders trying to come to it?
Well, Don, let me ask you something.
I knew you were.
We're looking at literacy rates. Apparently the criteria for Aaron Sarker for exceptionalism revolves around literacy rates, math rankings, and science rankings.
Right.
So if we want to determine what is great and what exceptionalism is, we should look at the countries that are on top of the charts. And last time I checked literacy rates, Cuba was ahead of us.
Right
they were top 10.
Yeah.
They're top 10, so apparently they're exceptional.
And they are so exceptional, they're crashing their borders every day. They've probably got a great border patrol to keep people out of Cuba, right? Because they're exceptional? That's nonsense. That's nonsense. There's an old saying, there's lies, there's damned lies, and then there's statistics. And that's what they're trying to use against us here.
Yeah.
Their border patrol are called sharks.
Yeah, no, but I think this is interesting. Aaron Sarker is using media to persuade us to believe something that's not true. Because I think when you start talking about rankings, the inference is the higher you're ranked, the more likely you are that you are an exceptional country. Take a look at the rankings when you get a chance for literacy, math, and science. And if you think that any one of those countries is exceptional, I would be really surprised. But here's the interesting thing. I'm going to pick on Aaron Sorkin because I know what he's doing. He's doing the exact thing that we should be doing. He's utilizing media to persuade people to believe in a certain way. And he did this very effectively. Very effectively. You know, the first time I got this video, several individuals that were affiliated with the grassroots organizations, Tea Party, Republican Party, and even the Republican Party in Arizona posted this in their newsletter. And I had people saying, man, he's got a point. No, he really doesn't. Because here's the hypocrisy of an Aaron Sorkin. If you were to sit down and talk with him, what does he believe about education? He believes in nationalized standards. He believes that the Department of Education should be involved in deciding what happens in Arizona and North Dakota and New York. He believes that there is no problem with big government dictating what happens all the way down to Mesa, Arizona, Burke Basic School. He has no problem with that. The issue is you can't have it both ways. You can't say, I want the government involved at a national level, and over here, here's the results it creates, and I don't like those results, therefore you're not exceptional. You can't have it both ways. And so this is a guy who says, I want government involved here. I'm all about teaching kids, for example, these to meet these nationalized standards, which are a bunch of bunk. I'm all about teaching kids how to put a condom on a banana in the classroom. Right? These are the things I'm going to teach these kids, and when the results don't turn out the way that I would like them to, I'm just going to attack America as an exceptional country. That's precisely what's going on. Because America is exceptional in so many ways. I want you to just consider this. Equal protection under the law. 14th Amendment, implied in our 5th Amendment. Equal protection under the law isn't just a soundbite. It's not, this is something that people died for. This is a principle that people have given everything for. They've shed blood for, to ensure that the government treated us equally. They didn't get to pick and choose the winners and losers. They didn't get to pick who they are going to harass and who they're going to protect. Equality across the board. And we can look at all kinds of things that really amplifies this idea of exceptionalism. Consider this for a second. What country creates more millionaires than any other country? It's America. Top 10 colleges in the world, seven of them are found right here in the United States. Let's talk about exceptionalism. We have 5% of the world's population, yet we create 25% of the world's wealth. Coincidence or exceptionalism? When you look at innovation, we are more innovative and creative than any other country in the world. If you look at patents in force, we consistently have more patents in force than any other country in the world. Second place, we exceed by 6 times. Coincidence or exceptionalism? From my perspective, it's exceptionalism. The biggest, baddest, meanest military in the world. Exceptionalism or just happenstance? And then you look at things like our Constitution, the 4th Amendment. This idea that we have a right to be left alone, that we have the right in the First Amendment, that this right is protected and codified, that I can say and believe those things that I want to say and believe, even if you disagree with them. That's exceptionalism. The right to pursue property, protected in the Fourth Amendment. Exceptionalism or just happenstance? That's exceptionalism. So if we want to have the argument about exceptionalism, it doesn't matter to me who is necessarily in the White House. This country, because of its principles, still facilitate the idea of exceptionalism. I'm very disturbed by the idea of a Hollywood producer thinking he's going to convince Americans that it's not that way. Because I would like to have this conversation with him. Right? Okay, so we incarcerate more individuals in this country than any other. Let's assume for the sake of argument that that is true. How does that make us any less exceptional? Because listen, what we're talking about when we talk about American exceptionalism is not nationalistic pride. We're talking about an idea. America is about an idea, and the idea just so happens to be found right here. And as a result, we are exceptional. And so I think, getting back to where we started, if we're talking about individuals who are running for office, do we have individuals there that are willing to stand up and defend the idea of exceptionalism, of American exceptionalism? You know, I continue to go back to SB 1062. And watching the Republicans run for the hills when it came to SB 1062, the very individuals that voted for it, and I will never let those people off the hook for doing that, because when is it fashionable or bad timing, for that matter, to defend liberty? Oh, it was bad timing, it was poor timing, we shouldn't. Really? So it's poor. When is it poor timing to defend liberty? And so this, I think, is a great example of individuals who did not understand American exceptionalism. They were unwilling to defend it because I think many of them were concerned about the thing that Thomas Sowell tells us that our incumbents are more concerned about than anything else: elections and re-elections. I look like the bad guy. I look like the bigot. I look like I'm the hater. I look like I'm the racist, and I don't want to have to defend those ideas. Come out and be courageous, because we know right now in America that our biggest problem is we have a courage problem. America has a courage problem, and it's found in the individuals that we've elected. Yes, Mark.
I would like to add here that the American dream comes in here. They've distorted that, but the American dream is really about just liberty. Yeah. It's not about getting rich.
Right. Yeah, being able to pursue those things. You know, if you look at Thomas Jefferson, the red-haired wonder, Declaration of Independence, he writes in the Declaration of Independence what? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. There's a reason why that phrase is in there as opposed to property. There are other ways that you can become happy other than acquiring, possessing, disposing, and enjoying a property. And in America, we say, hey, if you just choose not to enjoy property, you're not any less of an American. You've made a choice, and in this country, you have a choice. If you want to rent a house your entire life and not own anything, that's your prerogative. That's called freedom, and that's what these people were talking about. So let's talk about the greatest of all trusts must be protected, and any breaches should impose a serious sanction. How is it in this country that individuals can violate a contract, can engage in acts of fraud, and go to jail or end up in court and have to pay a lot of money, but when you violate the greatest contract that exists in this country, you get to keep your job and make even more money, and you've got a great pension waiting for you. There's something terribly, 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 terribly wrong with the system that says, I'll punish you for stealing $40,000 for violating a contract, but if you violate the greatest contract, that is the Constitution that you took an oath to uphold and defend, you get to keep your job. And we'll even applaud you when you stand up and applaud the president who tells you, I'm going to take your power away from you. Remember, State of the Union? So let's talk about some of these issues here. We ask questions to establish the framework of the discussion. We press the issue to get to the truth. During the time that we're together over the next several months, we're going to bring in candidates. And the floor is going to be open. And you're going to have the opportunity to ask those questions. And my hope is that, again, you're free to do what you want. Nobody's going to line you up at the door and say, you can't ask that question or you can, either way. You're free to ask whatever question you want. But my hope is that I can encourage you to start asking questions from a constitutional framework to ensure that the individual standing in front of you has a working knowledge of the rule book. And that rule book is the Constitution. It's the U.S. Constitution. It's the Arizona Constitution. And if the answer is that he does not, then why in the world are we voting for these individuals? Why? Why? There was something that happened right in this room about 2 years ago. Some of you were involved. Buckley was involved. Dan was involved. We met for dinner over at the Denny's, and there was about 12 of them that were involved. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this as I tell this story. They had a candidate coming in running for federal office. And I had taught this 4-hour course called Taming the Beast of Washington, this is the tip of the iceberg tonight. And so we sat down and they discussed the questions that they were going to ask this particular candidate. And they knew that they were going to be in a large group setting. They had, 150 people that were here. And they'd spread themselves out throughout the room, and one at a time got up to ask these questions. And it was awesome. About 12 questions were asked of this individual, and correct me if I'm wrong, he got maybe 2 of them correct, or am I giving him a little bit too much credit? About two. So he had one individual stand up, and he said, sir, tell us what you believe is the purpose of government. And then another person stood up and said, sir, tell us what you believe the purpose of the Constitution is. And then the next question came up, tell us where you derive your power as a legislator if you're in fact voted into office in the Constitution. In other words, tell us where in the Constitution you have the power to act as a legislator. Got the answer wrong. Then went into the next one. Tell us where in the Constitution it delineates your grants of authority. That is, it tells you what you're specifically permitted to do. Anybody know the answer? Article 1, Section 8. Do you think you knew the answer? He had no idea what the answer was. And then the next question came. In Article 1, Section 8, it delineates your grants of authority. There are 18 clauses. Would you be so kind as to name 3 of those powers that are granted to you in Article 1, Section 8? Okay, you can't? All right, we'll bargain with you. Can you name 1? Couldn't even name 1. This guy wanted your vote. Guess what? We voted him in. We voted him in. Who was it? What's that? Yeah. Article 1, who was it? Who was it? It was Jeff Flake. It was Jeff Flake. Okay. So here's the deal. There were more questions that were asked. Article 1, Section 9 speaks of a bill of attainder and it prohibits you from enacting laws that would constitute a bill of attainder. Would you be so kind as to tell us what a bill of attainder is? No answer. Why are we voting these individuals in? Okay? And this isn't just about one individual. This is about a whole crew of individuals all across the country that we're allowing to go into office. Say that. What's that?
We're voting for them because they have hair.
They have hair?
We're voting for them because they have hair and they have a nice smile.
Yep. There
Leaves
go.
you out.
So here's the question. What is the purpose of government? Protect the rights of the people. I thought it was to take care of the people. It's not to take care of the people? What do you mean? How can... And? What's the problem with that? Let's take care of the people.
We are a capitalist nation, not a socialist nation. We do not need Marxism or fascism in this country.
Where does it say that in the Constitution? I must have missed that.
It doesn't.
Hold on. I mean, I've got my Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. I don't see anything there.
I want my free stuff.
I want free stuff too.
I want my free stuff.
Yeah.
And if I can't take care of myself, I remember the question from the town hall debate with Bill Clinton. Do you remember this? We look upon you as our daddy, and what are you going to do as to help your children? Do you remember that question?
Yeah. 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 So yes, run. Run.
I'll feel your pain.
But run. She's
I thought you were telling me to run for office. I wasn't sure.
The problem is the hands that feed us control us, then can control us. And do we want that?
But what about this idea? Let's go to you first.
You know, Sean, I went to...
Shane.
Shane, I'm
Don't
sorry.
ever get that wrong again. How
But
long
that
have we
was
known
close.
each other?
That was close, you know, Poland and Hungary. Anyway, I went to a meeting, I think it was LD 18 and 17, and what these candidates did, they traveled from table to table, and we were able to ask questions. And I was going to write down, do you know, I'm thinking about the chairperson for LD 17. I don't remember his name. Anyway, I was going to write down a note and give him that these guys, everyone that came to our table, he talked his head off. And we had like about a half a minute for a question. I was going to ask him the question. I wasn't interested in his past, but I wanted to ask him the question of what he's going to do to make absolutely sure that every one of the persons in Congress know his particular chore and do his job, or send in the other one, because that's what has to happen.
Yeah.
And I never got to ask the question.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have alternate congressmen.
Yeah, we could do that. Have a guy.
And if they fail to fulfill their duties, like Miss America, we
have a
pull
guy
their.
who's on deck.
That's right, and we
on
say,
deck.
"You're out."
That's it.
Okay, this isn't in the Constitution, but Margaret Thatcher is famous for saying that socialism is great until you run out of other people's money.
Right. So very good. Let's talk about this for a second, because if you were to go on a college campus and you were asking them about the purpose of government, the majority of the individuals there would say it's all about taking care of the other people. It's all about making sure that we're safe. Healthcare is not an issue. Why? Because we're a compassionate people. Let's provide incentives by way of taxation, right? For any number of businesses to come in and provide a service, whatever the case may be. Let's make sure that individuals are taken care of. Is that wrong? How is it wrong? Yes, Heidi.
We have become a nation of doing everything by feeling. Look what is happening in the border right now. It's all about, we need to feel good about taking care of those children that are coming across the border.
Yes.
It's not the fact that we're being invaded, but we need to feel good that we did a compassionate thing.
Yes.
I mean, they're running a huge, tomorrow at the governmental debate, they're not even going to have time for the debate because they're running a fundraiser for diapers, underwear, and everything that needs to go to those kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Shane, I don't want to step on this, but for 5 years I've talked about Marxism in the recent swing of things. And one of the things that I didn't get to last week was, what do we do about this? And one of the things that I say and have said for the last 5 years is, it's like a kid in a grocery store that wants an ice cream bar, and mom says no, and they pitch a fit until mom gives in. Those kids are now running government, academia, journalism, and all the rest of it. The kids are in control. And for the adults to take this back, it isn't going to be pretty, because if you've ever seen a 4-year-old pitch a fit in a grocery store, that's nothing compared to what you're going to see when the adults try to take back control of this country. Liberalism is based on feeling good.
Yes, and I think what's important is, as we look at the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Independence is the why, the Constitution is the how, the Declaration is the promise, the Constitution is the fulfillment. You look at the Declaration of Independence as what individuals were willing to die for, the Constitution is what we're willing to live for. And so we've got to look at the Declaration of Independence as being the underpinning of our Constitution, and we can look at the philosophy of government. What is, so we're talking about purpose of government, it helps to understand the philosophy of government. It tells us in the second paragraph of the Declaration what the philosophy of government is. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Self-evident, not we hold these ideas to be self-evident, or these are mere suggestions, right? We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they're endowed by who? Not by government. They are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and those rights are what? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is the philosophy of our government. And yet we're moving away. Understand that if you eliminate the Declaration of Independence as the underpinning of our country and our Constitution, the Constitution becomes anything you want it to become. Anything you want it to become. You remove this idea that freedoms are inherent, you become South Africa. Remember the Constitution that Ruth Bader Ginsburg alluded to? Right? That's a Constitution that doesn't buy into the idea that our freedoms are inherent. It buys into the idea that only the individual can be liberated by government. So when you start talking about the purpose of government being for the government to take care of the people, you're eliminating the Declaration and what's found there. So it talks about philosophy of government in our Declaration. The very next sentence talks about the purpose of government, which is to secure the rights of the people. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. And number 3, it talks about the source of power, deriving these just powers from the consent of the governed. Right there, the answers are there for us. But we want to go onto these college campuses and have these sophisticated conversations about what this Constitution means. We don't need to go very far. Defend the foundation is what it ultimately comes down to. I've got a lot more I want to hit on, but I know we got a special number here. So I'm going to... Oh yes, let's go here and then...
Before we blame the kids, could we remember that we're the ones that brought them up? Yes. When my son was little and he pitched a fit, I walked away. So he climbed into the freezer and I let him stay there. I couldn't reach him anyway, until some nice man took him out. No one said a word. I took my grandson to Fry's, and he pitched a fit, and I walked away, and they threatened to call the police because I was abandoning him.
Yeah.
I wasn't going anywhere. I was right around. So a lot of what the kids have is the fault of the parents and the fact that we think, or I don't think, but I mean, the general consensus is that everybody has the right to tell you what to do, and we've let them run wild.
Right.
The inmates are running the asylum.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it's a big deal. I know some people don't, but, you know, I brought up my kids, and it's the parents' fault, whether we let our children do too much, and, you know, it goes on and on. Whatever the reason, we need to stop and teach them that there are rights, but there are responsibilities that go with those rights.
Right.
Yes, I will let you use the car, but if you get a speeding ticket, I'm taking the keys away.
Right.
And that's all been lost.
So a big problem that we have in America right now is that we have individuals that are willing to stand up for freedom so long as the kind of freedom that I endorse. If it's not a freedom that I endorse, I will use government force to shut you down. And it was Thomas Paine who talked about this. He said, if you are unwilling to stand up for the freedom of your opposition, you're next up. You are next up. And I think that's the problem, is we have our own individual agendas, and sometimes that agenda strays away from what it really means to be free and protecting freedom for all.
We'll be back with more of Shane in just a few minutes, but right now I want to introduce a lovely lady you wrote this song, is that correct? She wrote this song. She's a singer-songwriter. I have so enjoyed getting to know her over the last several weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome once again Kirsten Millsap.
As a singer-songwriter, it has been kind of a nice thing, a balm of kind of my way to bring out my feelings, whether they were happy or sad. And a lot of times there'd be those days that I would wake up and I would just feel, oh my gosh, I've just watched the news, big mistake to do first thing in the morning. And I would think, how do I have faith in the direction that this country is going in? How do I have hope that it's ever going to change? And obviously we know that when we are vacant and empty of hope, we don't have faith. And so I wanted to write a song that kind of speaks to what hope would say if hope were a person. And to me, hope was kind of a nurturing person, like a mother. And so I wanted to bring this song out from her standpoint. And so I wrote the song, My Name is Hope. Silent. They've sent rain and they've sent fire, but I am strong and enduring. I am eternal. They'll never stop me from singing. It's hard to believe in something when it cannot be seen. But my name is Hope, and if you are listening, then you will hear me singing.
I'll help you move mountains if you'll only believe. For with your prayers and the Father willing, then we will keep on singing. Thank you.
Goosebump time, huh? That's fabulous. Thank you so very, very much. I want to see that as a video. I want to see you record that and a video. Would you? Good idea? Thank you.
How do you do this?
Hopefully, we'll be able to have Kirsten back again in succeeding weeks and share some more of her talent with us.
Put it back over.
Shane, are you still?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are
Well,
you?
You didn't look like you were ready.
No, I'm always ready.
Oh, okay.
I'm always ready.
Okay.
Are you?
I have a comment.
Are you?
I have
Are
a
you
comment,
ready to
but
save this nation?
we're in mixed company, so I can't do that. All right, go get him.
Hey, let's talk about this. I know we've got some people here for the first time, and I want to outline some things, and then I want to give you some real meat to start utilizing to ask these various candidates. How many articles are in the Constitution? 7 articles. How many amendments? 27. I don't hear it. It needs to be more in unison. That makes me concerned. Decisive. Yeah, right, decisive. How many articles do we have? 7. I heard a 4 and I heard an 8. We have 7. We have 7 articles. How many amendments? 27. We got 27 amendments. Here's why this is important. It's part of the rule book. And those that are going to be representing us need to understand what's in the document. Here's what I want to get at. I want to focus for just a few minutes on the first 3 articles, because this is where the real battle is taking place right now in America, is those first 3 articles. And we have individuals in government that don't know how to utilize that which is there as ammunition. Article 1 speaks to what branch of government? The legislative branch. Article 2 speaks to executive branch, and Article 3 speaks to judicial. Here, for those of you that haven't heard this before, here's what I want you to memorize. And those of you that have heard this before, shame on you if you don't remember it. LEJ. LEJ is what I want you to memorize. LEJ. For a couple of reasons. Number 1, I want you to have a working knowledge of the Constitution. Article 1 speaks to the legislative branch. Article 2 speaks to the executive branch. Article 3 speaks to the judicial branch. So not just having a working knowledge, it's also for purposes of being able to get into a conversation, an argument with someone who may not agree with you. Being able to go back to the rule book and say, well, wait a second. The legislature is doing this. Where in Article 1 do they have the authority to do this? Or the president is doing this. Excuse me, but he took an oath to this document. Tell me where in Article 2 he has the power to do this, or the courts are doing A, B, and C. Tell me where in Article 3 they have the power to hear that type of case or to issue that type of ruling. See, this is very powerful stuff. Now put it in the context of questioning a candidate. Being able to ask them, where in the Constitution do you derive your authority? That should be a fundamental gimme in this country right now. But it's not. Let me just give you an example here as we're going to listen to a congressman being questioned about Article 1, Section 1, and the people of Idaho actually voted this guy in. Here we go.
The First Amendment, you mentioned free speech. The First Amendment guarantees all of us 5 rights. Would you be so kind as to tell us the 5 rights? You can articulate that.
Okay, that was the First Amendment. That was the question that followed Article 1. He said, can you articulate the 5 protections found in the First Amendment? He said he couldn't do it. He's out in Congress representing the people of Idaho. That's great stuff. All right, here we go.
As our representative, you took an oath to uphold, protect, and defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Yes? Mm-hmm. If you'd be so kind as to explain to everyone in this room Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution.
Article 1
Section 1 is the right to free speech.
By the way, that was actually a New Jersey Congressman, Lobiondo. We laugh about it, but that's absurd. Tell us about Article 1. Well, that's where I derive my authority to act as a congressman. That's where I get the power to go in and create certain laws. He says Article 1 is free speech? What are we doing in this country? And so, think about how powerful this question is. If you have somebody, and we've got 2 congressmen coming in 2 weeks, feel free to have a stab at it. I think both of these candidates have a pretty good idea of what this is about. But I'm going to show you some things that we can really press them on. Article 1 deals with their grants of authority. That is, that's where they get their power to legislate. Now, where are their specific grants of authority found in Article 1? Anybody know? Section 8. So why not that question? We're not asking them to memorize these things. We're simply saying, do you know where in the rule book you should go when you're contemplating a piece of legislation, whether it is you're creating it or you're voting on it? Why wouldn't we ask that question? Tell us where in Article 1 you find your specific grants of authority. I'm telling you, and I'd bet money on this, that 95% of the congressmen in Washington, D.C. could not answer that if they were given a test. Could not tell you where their grants of authority were found. And we wonder what's going on in America today? Now watch this. So now we know that they're not going to be able to answer that, or maybe they can answer that. Kudos if they can. Now why wouldn't we ask this question as a follow-up? Someone else in the audience, large group setting. Why wouldn't we ask this question? You're running for one of the most powerful offices in the world, let alone the country. Would you be so kind as to name 3 of the 18 grants of authority found in Article 1, Section 8? Why wouldn't we ask that question? Why wouldn't we ask them to name 5 of the 18 or 8 of the 18? But we'll give them the benefit of the doubt. We'll just say name 3. Name 3. Right? But right now in America, what are we doing? We're focusing on, what are you going to do when you go back to Washington, D.C. and we've got all of these issues going on, and I really have a problem with the school system. What are you going to do about the school system when you go back? You don't have any authority. Right. That's right. So we get stuck on these pet projects, if you will, and that's what we're focusing on. If we can get our candidates and the incumbents to understand the parameters of our authority, we start to fix some of these things. Is it the end-all, be-all? Of course not. But guess what? We're 3 steps ahead of them. Because if we get them to start asking these questions, what do we start doing next? We start saying, wait a second, you took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. You have a working knowledge of the Constitution, and you didn't keep your oath. Okay? I don't know if some of you listened to the conversation. I had a guest on my show on Friday. I had John Huppenthal on my show on Friday. Okay? Now, I want to tell you that I like John Huppenthal. Okay? Some of you may not like him. I stand up here to tell you that I like him as an individual. I like what he has stood for in the past as a state legislator. I am appalled with the idea that he embraces Common Core. And I let him have it on the show. And I told him what I thought, because here's the thing. When I talk about being 2 or 3 steps ahead of somebody, this is what I'm talking about. That man has a working knowledge of the Constitution. He knows the document. He can cite the founders. The guy can quote individuals like Benjamin Franklin and James Madison, George Washington, like very few in elected office. He's very good when it comes to that. And my question was simply this. You understand the document, so would you please tell us the constitutional framework under which you are operating to justify that program? And for an hour we went back and forth, and he never answered the question. We wanted to talk about results, and I had to stop him and say, wait a second, I'm not talking about results. I'm not talking about whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. Quite frankly, I don't care. I don't care if Common Core is a good idea. That's not the conversation I'm having. I'm having a conversation over here, and that is the constitutionality, unconstitutionality. I don't care if the idea is a good or bad one until I've established first that it's constitutional. See, you put the cart before the horse. See, that's what I'm saying when we're 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead. Once we get these individuals in office that who do have a working knowledge, now we're making progress towards the environment that existed at the time this country was founded. These were the conversations we were having. When you had an individual come in running for office back in the early 1800s, the 1830s, the 1840s, these were the conversations they were having. They were talking about policies, and people like me and you would stand up in the back of a room and say, you embrace this policy, tell us in Article 1 where you have that authority. And we would have legitimate, hardcore arguments about these things, but we're not even there. And that's what I'm suggesting is when let's start having these people answer these, for them, tough questions. Name 3 of the grants of authority. Look at Article 1, Section 9 when you get a chance. Article 1, Section 9 is a little different than Section 8 because Section 8 says, here's specifically what you're permitted to do, right? Article 1, Section 9 says, hey, here's some things you better not do. Don't do them. No bills of attainder. No ex post facto. No habeas corpus. Think about the 3 terms I just gave you. How many congressmen even know what those things mean? And they've been told they can't do them. How about getting up and saying, you know what, Article 1, Section 9 lists a couple of prohibitions. Would you please talk about a bill of attainder because that sort of thing is specifically prohibited. I want to make sure you're not doing these things. Tell us what a bill of attainder is. How many of you think could answer that? Not many. Not many. Or an ex post facto law. Or habeas corpus in light of the Patriot Act, or help me, Obamacare. No, not Obamacare. No, the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. Habeas corpus in context of the National Defense Authorization Act. Talk about it, right? Being able to detain somebody indefinitely. Violation of Article 1, Section 9. What I'm getting to, and I know this is information overload, but what I'm trying to get you to think about is you don't have to understand what a bill of attainder is to answer the question. Okay? My hope is that you will understand what it means before you do ask the question, but all it is a matter of cracking open the Constitution before you ask a candidate and says, Article 1, Section 9 says he can't do this. Bill of attainder, tell us what that is. Tell us what an ex post facto law is. Why the prohibition on habeas corpus? Why wouldn't we ask those questions? And then even going back to Article 1, Section 8, right? There's this big debate going on in America right now about what? The General Welfare Clause. Let's ask him about the General Welfare Clause. Does he understand that it's not the authority to do anything you want? And I imagine that most Republicans and most conservatives would stand up and say, yeah, it's not the power to do anything that you want. Then why is it there? Explain why it's there. And let them get up here and justify. What I'm suggesting, ladies and gentlemen, is that what we have to do, if we want to change the narrative and we want to turn this country around, is we've got to start asking the questions that matter. Now watch this. Some of you have these, we all have our pet projects that we're passionate about, okay? Social Security. How do you ask that question in the context of the Constitution? Very simple. Take your pet project and say this. Sir, you're running for one of the most powerful offices in the world, let alone the country. We have an issue called Social Security. Will you tell us whether or not the Social Security program is constitutional? If your answer is yes, it's constitutional, please tell us where in the Constitution that is permissible. If your answer is no, please tell us what you will do using the Constitution as your guide to eliminate the program. What have you just done? You forced them to answer the question on the playing field that you established. And what is that playing field? The Constitution. Immigration. We have a significant immigration issue in this country today. Article 1, Section 8 deals with naturalization laws. Sir, using the Constitution as your guide, would you please tell us how you will address the immigration issue? You can use it for any issue out there, whether it's abortion, whether it's food stamps, whether it's welfare. It doesn't matter what the issue is. You take the issue and you simply ask, is it constitutional? If the answer is yes, please tell us where in the Constitution it's permissible. And if the answer is no, what we want to know is what you will do using the Constitution as your guide to fix the problem when you get back to D.C. This is how we do this. Now watch this one. Executive orders. We're all concerned about executive orders, right? Are executive orders constitutional? Some. Good, that was a trick question. Some. What executive orders are constitutional?
Emergency situations.
Careful there. Emergency situations. Yeah, we want to be very careful because there are some emergency situations that would fall within the scope of the executive branch's authority that would allow him. Now, before I let you answer, where is the president's powers found in the Constitution? Article 2, LEJ. L, Article 1, legislative branch, executive branch, Article 2, judicial branch, J, Article 3. Don't miss this again, or there will be a grade given and then, never mind. Okay, so here's why this is important. You have someone who's running for legislature, for Congress. Why should it matter that he knows what the president is permitted to do? Because he's the check, right? He's the check on the executive branch. He's the check on the judicial branch. So he better know what the president is permitted to do. That also means that he better know what executive orders are permissible, constitutional, and which are not. Imagine with me, if you had 535 individuals in Washington, D.C., or even 218 right now, who had a working knowledge of executive orders. You know what would be going on in Washington, D.C. right now? Yeah, they would be turning hell upside down. That's what would be going on right now. We're not there. Getting small glimpses of it right now in Washington, D.C. So, executive orders, when are they constitutional?
They are not constitutional when they substitute for a law or have the action of making a law.
That's right. That's right. So, executive orders are unconstitutional. Thank you, Mr. Reagan. Yeah, they're not constitutional when they bypass the legislative process. And this is important. Remind your congressmen that Article 1, Section 1 says what? All legislative powers herein granted. Trey Gowdy said it best. We do not pass suggestions. We do not pass ideas. We are the holders of the legislative power. We decide what the law will be, and he has a constitutional obligation to enforce it. He doesn't get to pick and choose. Let's get some congressmen there that understand that idea. So what executive orders are constitutional? Well, we know that the president has some grants of authority found in Article 2, and he can issue an executive order to carry out that function. The easiest way to remember it, for example, is Commander-in-Chief. He's Commander-in-Chief. He wants to move troops from point A to point B, issue an executive order. I want to bring the troops home, issue executive order. Okay? He's the Commander-in-Chief. Okay? So now, how is it that we pin these guys down? I'm really hoping we have this question addressed to the candidates. Now, I know I got supporters from both sides in the room, and I know you're going to go back and tell them. That's okay. That's okay. We're 2 steps ahead of them. You watch this. So, what sort of question can we ask that revolves around executive orders? Well, we can ask him this. You're running for one of the most powerful offices in the world, let alone the country. I always start with that to let them know I understand, and we're giving you a lot of authority. Understand that I understand that. The president's issued about 175 executive orders to date. Many of those are unconstitutional. Please tell us what you will do using the Constitution as your guide to fight against the unconstitutional executive orders that this president chooses to sign. What will you do? Yeah. That's what many of them are saying. Absolutely nothing. So, I don't want to leave you hanging on this issue. What can be done about unconstitutional executive orders? Okay, so you have impeachment. Okay? What else do we have? Funding. Defunding. So, here's what happens. If the president signs an executive order, and that executive order requires funding, who holds the purse strings? The House of Representatives. We're not funding this thing. Can you imagine what would happen? Can you imagine If you had 218 individuals stand up in Congress and say, hey, that's a nice executive order, thank you very much, we're not funding that piece of garbage. Why? Because you violated your oath. It may be a great idea, but we're not funding it. Yeah, we hold the purse strings, that's right. You're not getting any money for it. Go ahead and write the check. Check's going to bounce. Okay? You have no power. So the idea of defunding, we have a lot of congressmen that know that that's an option, but are not willing to do what Trey Gowdy and Mike Lee and Ted Cruz are willing to talk about, and that is, let's rough them up. Let's go down in the congressional well and talk and yell and scream with righteous indignation. Why aren't we doing that? You've got a few, but we need to ensure that individuals we're sending there understand that. Defunding. What else? How else do we fight against this? What's that?
Pass a law.
Pass a law. Okay. Now let's talk frankly about passing a law. What's the problem with passing a law? Because it is a remedy. But what's the problem with passing a law? Who's got to sign it?
The idiot that wrote the executive order.
The idiot that wrote the executive order. And what's he going to do? He's going to veto it. What can be done in the Constitution to counter a veto?
Override.
Override. What do we need?
2/3 of both houses.
There you go. So we got to have 2/3. Is that going to happen today? No. Okay. But is it an option? Again, it's having a working knowledge of the Constitution. I got defunding. I've got that ability. I've got impeachment. I've got that ability. I've got the ability to counteract what it is the president is doing. See, just think about that for a second. I mean, these may not work initially, but we've got individuals in D.C. that don't even know these are options. You know they are. They don't. Why are we sending them to Washington, D.C.? It's absurd what we're doing. What else do we have? What else? The most powerful tool that we have hasn't been mentioned. What's that? Oh, that's very good. Right, the ballot box. Right, the ballot box. That's what needs to happen. But I need to check that executive order, and sometimes, you know, the ballot box takes time.
Sue them.
Yeah, sue. You know what needs to happen is lawsuits. See, here's what happens with an executive order. And this can happen. We have the resources to make this happen. There's this idea called standing. In order for you or me to file a suit, I have to show that I have been injured in some way. Let me just illustrate this with a very simple concept. Let's say that you live in Glendale and the city of Mesa says, you know what, we're going to now have prayer in schools. And you live in Glendale and you don't like it. And you say, enough of that. Those guys out there, they're violating the Constitution. Just hypothetically speaking. They're violating the Constitution. So you file a lawsuit against the city of Mesa. Can you do that as a resident of Glendale?
No.
No, because you have no standing. You haven't experienced a legal injury. But if you had a kid in that school, do you have standing now?
Yes.
Yes. So we would find somebody, if that's what we want to do, to file a lawsuit. We have the resources to make this happen, and we're not utilizing it right now in America. And that is when that president signs an executive order, it's impacting somebody. Somebody is being injured by way of that executive order. Somebody. If that's the case, we've got all kinds of law firms in America today that will represent individuals pro bono, free of charge, to counter these executive orders. But what we have to do is put together a center to find individuals that are being impacted. Filing a lawsuit. Now what has to happen? I know what some of you are thinking. They're saying, wait a second, why doesn't Congress file a lawsuit? I will tell you how that's gone on for 200 years now. It goes to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, that's a political question. You guys fight that out amongst yourselves. That's what happens. Okay? They say it's a political question, you're fighting over power, we're not going to get involved. But if I have an individual who's saying the executive branch by way of that executive order has harmed me, you think they're going to hear that case? You better believe it. 2011, the court came down with a case by the name of Bond, the Bond case, and it said this: if the government is utilizing their power in a way that exceeds what's been granted to them constitutionally, you have a cause of action, so long as you've been injured. We have the ability to file these lawsuits. And so, get back to where I started. We need to start asking these individuals running for federal office about these things. Let's get serious about this. Let's start asking the tough questions. Let's start demanding answers. Let's start working together. Can you imagine what a group like this would do? And we fill this place up, and we're all on the same page. And now somebody over here gets up to ask the question, and he avoids the question, he filibusters. I've got somebody over here waiting in the wings saying you didn't answer the question. So I'm going to ask the same question, answer the question. Right? That's what patriots do. We've got each other's backs, and we understand he's going to answer the question. He may not like it. He may feel a little bit uncomfortable, but he's going to answer the question. Right now what we're doing is we're allowing people to answer the questions, and then we move on to the next. I'm encouraging you in two weeks from now, we're going to have an incredible debate. It's going to be Lincoln Douglas style, so there's going to be a lot of back and forth. If you have questions, I believe what we're going to be doing, because it's going to be a Lincoln Douglas style debate, we're going to have you submitting questions as you come in. And they'll be reviewed, and we're not going to get to every question. But the objective is they're not going to know about the questions. Okay? If either one of the candidates asks for the questions beforehand, I give you my word, they will not get them. And if they say they're not going to show up because they're not going to get them, that's going to be on them, and I will make it clear to you why they chose not to show up. Okay? It's time to play hardball. Okay, this is what we're doing. And by the way, they're both Republican candidates, right? They're both up against Kirsten Sinema. One of these individuals is going to win, and we support them. Obviously, that's what we're going to do. But while we're on the road to getting to where we need to go, we're going to ask the tough questions, right, to ensure that they understand these things. Any questions before I close this up? Yes, Ken.
In the hearings, the last few, the IRS hearings on the lost emails the last few days?
Yes.
When they had, they asked some really tough questions to the IRS Commissioner, Trey Gowdy, Ryan, who else? A couple other, ISIS, really asked tough questions, and they, you know, they're not getting the answers, and these guys are. This is the role of the government. They're protecting the IRS, they're protecting the Justice Department, they're protecting the White House over the individual. They're protecting all these parts.
That's
and
right.
Those guys ask tough questions.
That's right. And what needs to happen is the people need to become just as ferocious as a handful of these guys. I mean, then we're talking 3 guys.
Jim Jordan.
Yeah. So asking great questions. One thing that I didn't touch on tonight is the Arizona Constitution. You have individuals running for state office. They need to have a working knowledge of both the U.S. Constitution, because they take an oath to the U.S. Constitution, and they're taking an oath to the Arizona Constitution. You might be asking, well, why in the world would we want them to have a working knowledge of the U.S. Constitution? Because the federal government is stealing away the power of the states each and every day. If you don't have individuals at the state level who understand how it is that they're doing that, how are they ultimately going to defend it? You think the people in Washington, D.C. are going to wake up one morning and say, you know what, today we're feeling benevolent. We're going to give back the power that we've stolen to the state, from the states. It doesn't happen that way. So we have to have individuals in state office that have a working knowledge of the U.S. Constitution, a working knowledge of the Arizona Constitution. And I'm not talking about memorizing it. I'm talking about understanding the essence of it, what it's designed to do, and being able to resort to that to answer those questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to close up. I know we're going to turn it back over to Brad and then to our friend Buckley. But I wanted to let you know this. These methods, we just hit the tip of the iceberg. We really did. There's so much more I'd like to share with you. But I believe that this is a significant part of the answer in America today. I really do. Is it the end-all be-all? No. No. This is a part of the answer. There's all of these things that we should be utilizing. This is one of the many things that we should be utilizing. And I'm convinced, as I've said before, that better days are coming. And I have confidence that better days are coming as I watch these tactics being utilized. Ensuring that individuals who take the oath understand the oath. We understand that our freedom is on the line. We understand that the freedoms of future generations is on the line. Why would we care about massaging the ego of somebody running for office when those things are on the line? I'm not talking about being confrontational. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being firm in what it is that we want to know from them. We're the bosses. We're the bosses. They're applying for a position. They should not be able to dictate the questions that are going to be asked and how they're going to answer the questions. We rule the roost is the idea, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Let's make this happen together. Thanks, guys, so much for
Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Krauser. Shane, come back here.
Are we going to juggle?
Well, no,
are we going to juggle?
No, not quite. But listen. You pay me to be the commercial.
I thought we were going to juggle. I was
no.
excited.
I have a little story I want to tell, if you'll allow me to do this. But folks, I want to give Shane just a moment's opportunity. He did this the first week we were here, but he hasn't done it since then. Take a moment, just a short moment, and talk about Freedom Fires,
Yes.
what the format of this is, what our purpose, our goal is, and what we're hoping to accomplish with Freedom Fires.
Okay. Short. Within 3 months, our hope is to fill this up. That's the idea. We're getting more numbers every week. We want to bring in candidates. We want to facilitate debates. Not just political debates. We want to bring in, we're working with Dr. Zuhdi Jasser and Carl Goldberg. We're going to have this debate here. Right? This will happen. Let me tell you why I know it will happen. Because Dr. Jasser said he will only debate if I'm moderating. Yay! So we're going to have the debate. It's going to be a great time. And so those things are going to happen. 2 times a month, we are going to allow the last half hour to have other grassroots organizations come in and talk about what it is that they're doing. So if you have grassroots organizations, leadership, bring them here. And twice a month, I think generally it's going to be the second and fourth. The second and fourth Tuesday, we're going to spend the last half hour allowing those grassroots organizations to talk about what it is that they're doing. What are their action items? So they get to talk about those things. The 5th Tuesday, I think we hit those 4 times a year. 5th Tuesday is going to be more like, we're still going to have this go on, but we're going to have more of a social. It's going to be fun, bring in food. That's the idea. We're going to do that 4 times a year. But what we want to do, I know you're telling me shut up.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Shut up. What we want to do is we want to create something that unites. No more dividing. Listen, we know we're going to disagree with one another along the way. It's going to happen. But are we defending the same foundation? That's the issue. You know, I'm looking at a guy right here. I have to tell the story. I'm looking at Wes right here. You know how many arguments Wes and I have been in? Does that surprise you?
No.
No. It doesn't surprise you.
Because I know you both.
Yeah.
And I love you both.
Yeah. We disagree. Not all the time, but sometimes, haven't we, Wes? But we're defending the same foundation. That's what needs to happen. Willingness to argue about things, but not abandon one another because we disagree along the way. That's a part of the problem with grassroots. We want to do what is necessary to bring that back together, allow you to bring your friends and family and neighbors right here, have a fun time doing it, and learn how to restore this nation. Did I do it short enough?
You did. Now, Shane, tell us about the website, freedomfires.org. Real quick, because these folks, you want them to sign up, and that's what you paid me to do.
Freedomfires.com. Check it out. Freedomfires.com. This is a membership site that we launched about 6 weeks ago. This training that I'm talking about here tonight is found on there. Teaching people how to engage the culture, how to embrace the freedom narrative is found on there. And so we're trying to move that across the country as well to give people a resource that they can look to really understand how to move this message. I will also tell you with freedomfires.com, it won't be long where we're doing a live feed. So anybody in the country can watch what we're doing here every Tuesday night. So we're very excited about that too.
Many, many years ago, Brenda and I, before we were married, we were driving down the Black Canyon Freeway. This is about 150 years ago. And at that time, some of you who maybe are natives of here will remember that along the North Black Canyon Freeway, they had ornamental orange trees along the side of the freeway. Does anybody remember this? Ornamental orange trees, very pretty. And one day, as we were driving north on the I-17, Black Canyon Freeway, we saw up in the distance, we saw a car had pulled over to the side of the freeway and stopped, and there were 2 people got out of the car, and they were going over and they were picking oranges off of the tree. Now, I turned to Brenda instantly and I said, they got to be from Iowa. Because anybody who lives here knows that those are ornamental oranges. But now, think about this for just a minute. Think about, and I'm very serious about this, think about this for a minute. Here are these people who are visiting the great state of Arizona. They've probably never been here before, and probably, and I know my relatives are from Kansas, and let me tell you, citrus is expensive in Kansas. They pay a fortune for oranges and for grapefruit in Kansas. My dad, every year, used to go out and pick grapefruit trees from friends and neighbors and orange trees, and he would box it up and he would send it to my aunts in Kansas, and they went crazy because they just didn't see fruit that, first of all, that size in Kansas ever, and secondly, they didn't have to pay for it. It was just the cost of shipping. Okay. So here are these folks picking ornamental fruit from the side of the road, and I'm thinking, you know what? They've never been to Arizona before, but they have probably heard that Arizona has this wonderful citrus, that they have this world-class, award-winning citrus. Now, the only other place that we think of is Florida, right? And usually, well, California too, but on the eastern side of the United States, most of it probably comes from Florida, and on the western side, it's Arizona and California. And as we drove by them, sure enough, I don't know that their plates were from Iowa, but they were from out of state. And I turned to Brendan and I said, it's going to be a shame, because the minute they peel that first orange and take a bite of that fruit, they're going to, one, be terribly disappointed, but number two, their opinion is going to be that Arizona has lousy citrus. And they're going to carry that message to all of their family and friends, aren't they? So, ladies and gentlemen, what we have is an analogy here that the Marxist, socialist, progressive utopia is like an ornamental orange. From a distance, it looks like a good, delicious orange. But the minute you get the first bite of it, you realize that you have been deceived. And for many people, that will be too late. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have to get the message out that this is ornamental fruit. It is not the real fruit. And the real fruit is freedom. Thank you.